Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing super well. So welcome to today's video. Today I am so excited because we're going to be talking about another thriller movie, and this one was so good, you guys. I remember I started this movie on the flight back from Las Vegas and I wasn't able to finish the movie because it was literally like a 40-minute flight. So as soon as I landed, I got to the airport and I literally rented the movie on my phone and watched it on the Uber drive home because that's how good this movie was. I was like, I need to finish this right now and see how this movie ended. So I know you guys are going to be a fan of today's story, and if you guys are new here and this is your first time watching one of these videos, welcome. Every once in a while I like to take a break from talking about true crime and just sit down and talk about a fictional story. We usually talk about a fictional thriller or murder mystery type story, so I think these are really fun to do, and it's nice to just take a break from talking about real things. Today we're going to be talking about the movie Fall. This movie came out in 2022, so it's pretty recent, and it's from the same producers of 47 Meters Down. So if you're a fan of those type of movies, then you're definitely gonna like this one. Now, I know these movies aren't for everyone, so if you are looking to watch true crime, don't worry, I did upload a true crime video this week on my podcast, What Happened. We talked about what happened to 4-year-old Paulette Ibarra, so if you guys want to see that video, I will link it down below and also put like a little thing up here so you guys can click on it. Real quick, before we get in the video, I quickly want to thank today's sponsor, PDS Debt. Everything is just getting so expensive right now, so I know it's hard to keep up with life while at the same time trying to pay off your debts. Thankfully, there is a solution to this. PDS Debt has customized 0% interest options for anyone struggling with credit cards, personal loans, collections, or medical bills. So if you're making payments every single month but you notice that your balances aren't going down, then this program is a great option for you. PDS Debt rolls all of your payments into one low 0% interest monthly payment, and everyone with over $10,000 in debt or more qualifies. There's no minimum credit score required, so anyone with bad or fair credit is accepted. With PDS Debt, you can save thousands in interest and in fees, plus you pay off your debt in a fraction of the time. PDS Debt is giving La Familia a free debt saving analysis when you complete their 30-second online debt assessment, which you can take at pdsdebt.com/Jackie. You'll receive a full breakdown on how to save interest each month, and you'll learn about the quickest ways to take care of your debt. Thank you again to PDS Debt for sponsoring today's video, and make sure to go check them out by going to pdsdebt.com/Jackie. And with that, let's jump right into today's video. So the movie opens with a beautiful overview of a mountain that Becky, our main character of the story, and her husband Dan are climbing. Now this is a very big mountain. They're very high up and they pretty much only have harnesses and ropes helping them. This already put me on the edge of the seat because I don't understand how people can just like climb out in the wild. Like, I like to rock climb inside a gym where there's a mat on the floor and I'm like harnessed to like a million things, but the people that just go out to a random mountain and start free climbing it with just like a harness, I'm like, girl, I don't know how they do that, so props to all the climbers out there. So Becky and Dan are climbing this mountain and they're trying to get over to another side of the mountain, that way the climb can be easier. And Becky's looking at this and she realizes there's a pretty big gap between the mountain they're currently on and the other side. So she tells her husband Dan, careful, there's a big gap there. And Dan looks at that gap and he tells Becky, I think this is the only route, so we have to keep going. He adjusts his harness and then he jumps over the gap and makes it to the other side of the mountain. This was a pretty scary moment, so after Dan makes it, they kind of just like laugh in a sense of relief of like, thank God he made it. So now it's Becky's turn. She grabs her things, she adjusts her harness, and then she tries to make the jump over, but she accidentally slips and she almost falls to the ground. Again, they are very high up in the mountain, so if you fall, you're pretty much dead. So Becky almost slips, and of course this freaks her out, so she gets back to the side of the mountain and she's kind of like clutching under her harness and just like having a moment. Dan, her husband, who's on the other side, tries to calm her down. He tells her, whoa, you're good, like, don't worry about it, you can do this. Becky looks too scared to even answer or look at him, and she just tells him, no, I can't do this. Like, this is freaking crazy. Dan tries to comfort her because there's literally no other option. She either makes a jump or they just stand there and never leave the mountain. He's telling his wife, okay, you've done way scarier than this. You've climbed this mountain, you've climbed that mountain before. I mean, you've done some wild things. I mean, hell, you even married this sad sack for Christ's sake, so you can do anything that you want. Now, this does cheer up Becky, so she clutches onto her harness once again. She takes a big, deep breath, and then she makes a jump over to the other side of the mountain, and she makes it. She lands in Dan's arms, and he hugs her, he gives her a kiss, and he tells her that he's so proud of her. And this is a really cute moment. They're kind of a cute couple. They look pretty young. They look like they're like 25, 26 years old. So I feel like they're probably like a newly married couple. So they start kissing and being all cute together, and then we can hear another voice from up above. Becky looks up, and it's her best friend Hunter, who's also climbing up the mountain. Now, she's pretty high up, so she's looking down at Becky and Dan, and she's kind of grossed out about the fact that they're like making out in front of her. So she tells him to knock it off, get a room, and to not do this stuff in front of her. Becky and Dan stop kissing, and Becky looks up and she tells Hunter, "Careful, there's a loose rock around the elbow." Hunter replies and says, "Worry about yourself, girl, I got this." So you can tell that Hunter is more of like that out there friend. Like, she's very confident, she's very outspoken, she doesn't really care what people think about her. While on the other hand, Becky seems to be a little bit more reserved, doesn't really cuss, she's not really out there, she's kind of just more of like the calm friend. So we have Hunter, who's at the highest point, and then we have Dan in the middle and Becky all the way at the bottom. So they all continue climbing, and Dan gets to a point in the mountain that has a cave in it. So he goes over to the cave and he tries to hook one of his harnesses into the cave. And as he's doing this, he's suddenly startled by a bird that comes flying out of the cave. This immediately makes Dan just freak out. I mean, he was not expecting an animal to come flying at him. He falls backwards, and he actually falls past Becky, so now he's even at a lower point than Becky. Thankfully, his harness and his rope are still connected, but since this was such a strong fall, he actually got pushed away from the mountain, and the rope was kind of just spinning him around the air. He kept trying to reach towards the mountain so he could grab onto something and kind of just like hold himself still, but he was spinning so fast that he could not get a good grip on the side of the mountain. At this point, Dan is screaming, Becky is screaming. I mean, everyone is freaking out because this is a pretty dangerous situation to be in. Yes, he still has a harness on and the rope, but still, any minute the rope or the harness could snap, and if Dan is not grabbing onto the side of the mountain, he will fall to his death. He continues to try to grab the mountain, but he just can't. He tells Becky, "I can't make it, Becky. I just need a little bit more length. Can you unclip?" Because the three of them were clipped together to the same ropes. So Becky was like, "Yes, let me unclip myself, and maybe that'll help you get closer to the mountain." Becky unclips herself, and as Dan is trying to swing himself closer to the mountain, his rope unhooks and Dan falls to his death. Becky and Hunter are still connected, and all they can do at this point is just watch it happen. Of course, Becky is screaming after her husband, but there's nothing they can do. Dan fell to the ground and died. So cut to the next scene, and we are now at 51 weeks after the incident. So nearly a year has gone by since Dan died. Becky's at her apartment, and we kind of get an overview of what her life looks like now, and it does not look good. There are dirty dishes all over the kitchen, there's dirty dishes in the sink, there's food everywhere. I mean, everything just looks like a hot mess. We even see this packing box that has a label on it that says cremated remains. So that means that an entire year has gone by without Becky even unpacking her husband's ashes. Becky's house phone rings, and we can hear the answering machine pick up the phone, and it's Becky's dad. He leaves her a message and says, "Hey Beck, it's me. Look, I've tried to console you every way I know how, but I can't help you if you don't pick up the phone. Sweetheart, I'm worried about you, so whenever you stop hating me, I'm here." And then the voicemail ends. Becky hears this message, but she just ignores it and decides to go to a local bar to have a drink. Becky arrives to the bar, and she sits by herself, has a drink, and she just looks so sad. She pulls out her phone and she decides to call her husband Dan. Of course, since Dan is dead, he doesn't pick up the phone. Instead, all Becky hears is his voicemail. Becky looks so happy listening to Dan's voice, even if it's just through the voicemail, and she leaves him a little message that says, "Hey, I miss you." After a while, Becky finishes her drink and she starts making her way out to the parking lot to head home. As she's walking outside, she sees her dad. Her dad is leaning against her car and he obviously doesn't look happy. Becky tells her dad, "Really, Dad, are you stalking me now?" "No, I just didn't know what to do. I mean, you're not picking up the phone." "Yeah, well, take the hint. I don't want to talk to you." Look, Becky, I think this is just getting ridiculous. Becky gets mad at this statement and she tells her dad, "You think I'm being ridiculous? You told me that I shouldn't be so broken up because Dan was an asshole." The dad immediately responded and said, "No, I said maybe you shouldn't put him on this pedestal that you're putting him up on, and maybe he isn't the martyr that you've been making him out to be." Becky doesn't want to hear it and she says, "Is this how you really want to console your daughter?" Her dad tries to get closer to her to console her and give her a hug, but Becky says, "Don't." And then she starts walking over to her car and tries to get inside to drive away. Now at this point we can see that Becky has probably had a little bit too much to drink. So she's fumbling her keys and it's obviously not a good idea for her to be driving. Her dad tries to take the keys away from her and tells her, "Don't drive, let me give you a ride home." Becky literally turns to her dad and says, "You." Now this made the dad super angry. He told her, "Listen, you cannot be talking to me this way. Me and your mother raised you better. Horrible thing happened to you, but you have to start living your life again. There's a whole big wide world out there that needs you, and believe me, I need you. Let me give you a ride home." Becky shakes her head and tells him, "I'd rather walk," and she starts making the walk back to her house. As she's walking away, her dad yells at her, "What if the roles were reversed? Do you think Dan would really be at a bar by himself drinking booze and being sad? You know he wouldn't be doing that. I just need you to try. I need you to try and get better." Becky turns to her dad and says, "Do you know what I need, Dad? I need you to leave me alone." And she storms off and walks back to her house. Her dad is just standing there looking defeated and sad at the fact that his daughter is pushing him away and, just wants nothing to do with him. Because all the dad is trying to do is, cheer her up and be there for her, but she just doesn't want it. And something I thought was interesting is that the father was saying, your husband was an asshole. He isn't this perfect guy that you're making him out to be. Yes, it's sad that he died, but he wasn't really that great of a person to begin with. That's what I got from that. And it made me wonder, why wasn't Dan as good of a husband as we think he is? Anyways, going back to Becky, she finally makes it to her apartment. And at this point, she is frantically crying. She's rummaging around the house and she tries to call Dan again because she just wants to hear his voice. So she calls him, but this time Dan's voicemail does not go through. Instead, all she hears is, "This line has been disconnected." So Dan's phone no longer works. After learning this just sent Becky completely over the edge. She's sobbing, she's bawling her eyes out, she's rummaging around the house trying to find more booze, and as she's in one of the cabinets trying to look for more alcohol, she ends up finding a bottle of pills. She's looking at these pills and she decides to grab the bottle, open it, and pour herself a handful of the pills. So now she has a fistful of these pills that we don't know what they are, and she has alcohol in the other hand. She's looking at these two things and she decides to combine them. She gets ready to swallow all of these pills with the alcohol, but before she can do that, the phone rings. So she's staring at the phone in shock because she's wondering if it's her husband Dan calling her. She gets a closer look at the caller ID and sees that no, it's not Dan, it's actually Hunter, her best friend, the one who was with her the day Dan died. Hunter arrives at her apartment, and as soon as Becky opens the door, Hunter immediately tells her, "You look really freaking awful. You look really bad." And she runs in and gives her best friend a big hug. The two girls go over to sit on Becky's bed, and Hunter starts showing her some photos of all the travels and adventures she's been on since Dan died. Becky's looking at all these photos, and it looks like Hunter has had such an amazing year just traveling, having fun, and just living life. Meanwhile, Becky's last year was just the complete opposite. She wasn't traveling, she wasn't exploring life, she wasn't having fun, she wasn't happy. She was literally miserable, depressed, and just heartbroken over the loss of her husband. So she's looking at all these photos and she asks Hunter, "What are you doing back? Are you here to finally get some rest?" "Yeah, I'll get some rest when I'm dead. I'm actually here because I have something that's planned and I need a partner in crime." Becky looks at her like, "You better not be thinking about me because I'm literally not getting off this bed anytime soon." Hunter turns to Becky and tells her, "Look, Your dad called me a few weeks ago. He didn't know who else to turn to, and he's worried that you're in a bad place. Look, it's about to be 1 year since Dan died, and we just all want to make sure that you're okay and that you move on from this. The only thing that drives me crazier than Dan's ashes being in a box out there is the fact that my best friend has to be stuck in here with that box of ashes. She then goes on to say that she has something to pitch to her, but that she's not gonna like it, but just to keep an open mind. Hunter grabs her phone and she shows Becky a photo of a really high tower in the middle of the desert and says, look, this is the B67 TV tower. It's only a 6-hour drive from here, and I was planning on climbing it this weekend, and I wanted to see if you would climb it with me. It would be an adventure like old times, and you can scatter Dan's ashes at the top. Come on, we have to do it. It would be so fun. Becky looks at Hunter like, is she joking? Like she really wants me to climb that thing after what happened? And she tells her, look, I haven't climbed since... well, you know, since Dan died. No, I get it. I understand. But if you don't confront your fears, then you're always going to be afraid. Hunter, I just can't. I'm sorry. And Becky immediately starts crying, and Hunter reaches over. She gives her a hug and tells her, hey, it's okay. Don't worry about it. You're gonna be okay. The next morning, Becky is in her kitchen looking for a mug for her tea. She's going through her cabinets, and that's when she comes across the bottle of pills that she was gonna take the night before. She sees the pills, and then she also sees the box of Dan's ashes. She just stands there staring at these two things, and then she walks over to the bathroom where Hunter is brushing her teeth and tells her, if you're scared of dying, don't be afraid to live. That's what Dan used to say. Let's do it. Let's climb your stupid tower. And Hunter looks so excited. She immediately has a smile on her face and she runs over to hug her best friend. And Hunter just looks so happy at the fact that her friend said yes to this and that she's willing to start moving on. So the girls pack up their things and they start making the 6-hour drive to the tower. They're driving through the desert in this deserted road, and Hunter is driving while Becky's in the passenger seat, kind of just scrolling through Hunter's phone, looking at old photos and videos of them, of when they used to hang out, when they used to go climbing, and when they used to just have fun together. Becky's looking at this old video of her, and it's a video of her dancing on a tabletop at a restaurant or at a bar, and she just looks like she's living her best life. Wow, I used to be really ripped. And Hunter looks over and sees the video and says, yeah, that's the Becky that we need for this trip. You can tell that Hunter is really trying to hype up Becky and just like cheer her up, because yes, Becky agreed to the plan, but it's one thing agreeing to go and it's another thing actually doing it. Becky continues going through the photos, and that's when she sees a photo of Hunter smiling, and it looks like she's on vacation. Hunter looks really happy in that photo, and as Becky starts to zoom in, she sees that in the corner of the photo, you can see a guy's hand hugging Hunter. Oh, who's in this photo with you? Hunter looks over to the photo and says, oh, I don't know. It's probably just some random person. No, who is it? Does Hunter have a boyfriend? And Hunter just kind of plays it off and says, no, it's nothing. It's just some guy. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But Becky's really intrigued and she asks Hunter, you know, who is it? Like, just tell me. But Hunter doesn't want to tell her, and she kind of just changes the subject. So the girls continue driving. They're laughing. They're having fun, you know, just joking around. And Becky gets a phone call, and it's actually her dad. She looks at the caller ID, but she decides to ignore the phone call and not pick up the phone. So because of this, we can kind of conclude that Becky hasn't told her dad that she's gonna go hike this, 2,000-foot tower. So at this point, I'm wondering, does anyone know that these girls are gonna go on this hike? Anyways, the girls continue the drive and they finally make it to the town where the tower is. They decide to pull over to a diner to have some dinner before going to the hotel and getting some rest. The girls are sitting down at a booth in the diner, and Becky's looking at Hunter's YouTube channel because she's a YouTuber who uploads vlogs of her climbing mountains, doing crazy things, going on all these crazy adventures, and Hunter's personality in real life is very out there and kind of like bold, but the way that she acts online is like a whole other level. She's very out there, very like daredevilish, and just like very crazy. So Becky's looking at her YouTube videos and she asks Hunter, I'm just saying, if you're gonna be a YouTuber, why not be yourself? You don't need to act this crazy. I mean, just be you. You're a natural born clickbait. But Hunter says no, that online you gotta be crazy to get the views, and that's just what she wants to do. Becky looks at her phone and sees that the battery is about to die, so she calls over the waitress and she asks her, is there anywhere I can plug my phone in? The waitress kind of just like looks at Becky and she's like, power ain't free, so no, there's nowhere for you to charge your phone. Hunter chimes in and she asks the waitress, do you know where Tower B67 is? And the waitress is like, honey, you do not need a map. Do you see that light out there? That's your tower. And she points out the window to the beaming bright light. Becky looks at this light and she's a little bit confused. Hunter, what's with the light? I thought you said the tower was out of commission. No, it is out of commission, but they have to keep the light on so that aircrafts can see it. You know, this used to be the tallest structure in the United States. Now it's just an old relic and they plan on tearing it down in the winter. As Hunter is explaining all of this information about the tower to Becky, Becky is still staring out at the tower and she's kind of zoning out. I'm sure she's thinking to herself, what the heck have I gotten myself into? Like, am I really gonna climb that tower tomorrow? So she's just zoning out and Hunter goes, Becky, hello, are you okay? Becky snaps out of it and Hunter says, give me your phone. Why? What are you gonna do with my phone? I'm gonna show you a cool little life hack. And she takes out the light bulb from a lamp that's sitting on the table and she takes out the bulb and then she lines up the phone charger with the lamp opening and connects Becky's phone and it starts to charge. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, does this actually work? Like, can you disconnect a light bulb and then use that to charge your phone? I don't know if that's actually real, but Hunter does that and she tells Becky, how's that for a dumb YouTuber? Since earlier Becky was like making fun of her YouTube personality. This little trick that Hunter showed Becky will come into use later on in the story. The girls finish up eating their food at the diner and they head over to the hotel to get some rest. The next morning, Becky is lying in bed and she wakes up and feels Dan's hand on her shoulder. She says, I love you. And when Dan doesn't respond back, she says, aren't you gonna say it back? She reaches over to grab Dan's hand and she can feel that his hand is really wet. So she wakes up and she looks and sees that Dan's hand is covered in blood and that the bedsheet is also covered in blood. She immediately screams and that's when she wakes up. It was all just a dream. So she wakes up and she can hear that Hunter is outside in the car honking at her and telling her to hurry up because the sun is already out. Becky quickly gets up, she changes, she freshens up, and then she heads outside to meet with Hunter. They get in the car and Hunter is driving while Becky's in the passenger seat. The girls are getting ready to leave when Hunter pulls out her phone and she starts vlogging. Are you live streaming this? No, don't worry about it. I film it now and I post it later. Okay, good, because I don't want to be in the video. Even though Becky said that she did not want to be in the vlog, Hunter does not care. She starts vlogging, she's having fun, she's telling her viewers how she's gonna climb this super tall tower, and she turns the phone over and she points it at Becky and she's like, hey guys, this is my friend Becky, like I want to introduce you to you guys. And Becky kind of just like smiles, but you can tell she does not feel comfortable being on camera. And honestly, Hunter just reminds me of that type of friend that like doesn't take no for an answer. Like she can text you being like, hey, do you want to go to dinner? And you can say no and she'll get like upset about it and try to force you to go out to dinner. I feel like that's the type of friend that Hunter is. So anyways, Hunter is vlogging as she's literally driving. So she's trying to balance both things, and as they're about to drive onto the road, a trailer truck starts honking its horn and it beeps at Hunter because she was literally about to crash into him since she wasn't paying attention as she was driving. So the truck honks at Hunter and she immediately stops, and thankfully the girls are okay. They're a little bit startled, but then they start laughing about it and Hunter says, 8 more lives, baby, and she shuts off the vlog. The girls continue driving until they finally make it to the tower. They pull up to the front gate, but there's a big sign in front of it that says, no trespassing, danger of death. I'm like, that should have been the first sign that these girls should not have done this. Like, if it literally says danger of death, why are you gonna go do it? So Hunter gets out of the car and she looks at the lock and she tries to unlock it, but this is like a very big chain. So she realizes she's not gonna be able to remove the chain and they're not gonna be able to continue driving to the base of the tower. Hunter turns over to Becky and she's like, looks like we're walking from here. Becky looks over and she's like, okay, how far are we gonna walk? I don't know, maybe like a mile, maybe 2-ish. Come on, it'll be fun. Becky looks annoyed at the fact that they have to walk and leave the car behind, but what other choice did she have? She grabs all of her things and she starts packing up her backpack, and we can see that in the backpack she has the box of Dan's ashes. So she is going to scatter his ashes at the top of the tower. They start making the walk to the base of the tower, and Hunter tells Becky, okay, I have all the essentials. I have water, I have harnesses, I have a 4K drone so we can get some cool footage. I have our phones, you know, all the essentials. Becky asks her, okay, what about food? No, don't worry about it. We'll definitely be back before lunchtime. They keep making their walk when all of a sudden they come across two vultures eating an animal. The girls immediately run over and tell the vultures to get away because the animal was still alive and was crying in pain. The vultures end up flying away, and the girls are just standing there looking at this animal dying. Hunter pulls out her camera and she takes a photo of the dying animal and says, survival of the fittest, right? You would do the same out here if you were also starving. She goes over to Instagram and she posts a photo with the caption, feeling peckish. Becky looks at this and she's like, that's not funny. Like, this poor animal just got eaten by these vultures. Hunter tries to calm her down and says, it's just a joke. It's funny. Like, it's not a big deal. They continue walking towards the base of the tower, and Hunter gets a notification from Instagram telling her that 300 people have liked her photo. Oh my gosh, 300 people have liked my photo. Wait, now it's at 350. 350 people have liked the photo that I just posted. Becky's like, wow, I wonder how many of your followers are actually serial killers, because why are 350 people liking a photo of a dead animal? Hunter laughs about it, and the girls realize that they finally reached the base of the tower. They look up to the tower and they realize that this is a lot taller than they had imagined. And this tower looks crazy. Like, there is no way you could ever convince me to go and climb this tower. Even if you offered me like $1 million, like, I don't think I would do it because it looks absolutely insane. Of course, Hunter starts vlogging and she's telling her followers, we are at the foot of this stomach-churning, massive fourth highest structure in the United States. We are going to begin our grueling journey with a 1,800-foot ladder climb inside a steel cage, and then after the ladder, we have a 200-foot vertigo-inspiring mast with an external ladder. Your girl is going to be wide open to the elements, and then beyond that, we have the precipice, the ledge, the top of the world. Now, while Hunter is explaining this to her vlog, she looks so excited about this, but Becky, on the other hand, looks like she's about to throw up. She's literally standing there with like her arms on her waist, and she's just like, Hunter, I can't do this. Like, I can't climb this tower. Like, this is crazy. And Hunter shuts off her vlog and she runs over to Becky and tries to calm her down. Beck, you can do this. I promise you can do this. We have to face our fears. No, Hunter, I can't do this. Like, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to go alone. Okay, Becky, I understand, but look, after Dan died, I was even afraid of my own shadow. But I pushed through and I overcame the fear. I took control. Don't let fear consume you. If you can beat this, you can beat anything, and I'm going to be right here besides you the entire time. Becky listens to this and she kind of takes a moment and she smiles. She feels a little bit more calm now, and she tells Hunter, you know, this is what you should be talking about in your vlogs. Like, you should be inspirational, not like so dramatic and clickbaity. Hunter laughs about it, and the two girls start making their way towards the ladder to begin the climb. Now again, this tower looks so big. Like, Becky's looking at this and she's like, we're really gonna climb this entire thing. Like, this is gonna be crazy. Hunter reassures Becky that they have 50 feet of rope between them and that they're clipped in and that they'll be safe. So Hunter gets on the ladder to start the journey and says, okay, one ring at a time, and let me know if you have to rest. And they begin to climb. Now, as soon as Becky touches this ladder, the ladder is immediately shaky. You can tell that it's very rigid and that it's not in the best shape possible. So seeing this shaky ladder really freaks Becky out because she's literally about to climb 2,000 feet on this shaky, weak ladder. She's freaking out, but she fights through it and continues to climb up. Now, Hunter is a little bit ahead of her and she's looking down at Becky and she's like, see, like, it's easy, you're doing great, this is so much fun. And Becky's like, yeah, this is so much fun, like, I'm having such a blast right now. Now from far away, we see a close-up of a supporting wire that's connected to the tower through the ground, and it begins to shake as if it can't handle the weight pressure. So already there's a few red flags in this, but the girls continue to climb. Becky continues climbing and she reaches for the next bar on the ladder, and as she grabs onto it, it literally falls to the ground. like all the way to the bottom. Of course, this freaks Becky out, but Hunter tries to shake it off and she tells her, "You're doing great, come on, like let's keep going." So Becky does. They keep making their way up, and as they're doing this, we see another close-up of the other side of the ladder where there are these screws on the side that are becoming loose and they don't look very stable. So if these screws come undone, the ladder will literally detach from the tower and they'll fall backwards. At one point, Becky gets tired and she tells Hunter, "Can we take a water break?" Hunter tells her, "Of course, yeah, let's take a water break. Let's take a moment here." And she hands Becky some water. As the girls are drinking water, she shows Becky this guideline that's on the side of the tower and tells her, "This guideline means that we're halfway up. So we're almost there. We just got halfway to go and then we'll be at the top and we'll be done." You know what's crazy though? We've climbed almost 1,000 feet. So we've literally climbed the height of the Eiffel Tower. Becky's like, "Okay, don't tell me that because that freaks me out even more knowing that we literally climbed the Eiffel Tower." So the girls are on their break drinking some water and they're kind of just like looking around at the scenery because at this point they're very high up. They're literally 1,000 feet above the ground. Hunter realizes that she can see the diner that they ate at the night before and the motel that they were staying at from up here. She's like, "Look at that. That's literally the diner and the hotel. Like it looks like a toy town from up here." While Hunter looks excited about this and so happy to like be climbing this tower, Becky just does not look like she's having it. She does not care about the tiny town. She does not care about the fact that they've climbed the Eiffel Tower. Like all she wants is to finish this climb and just get back down to earth where she's safe and sound. The girls finish up their break and they continue making their way to the top of the ladder. As they're doing this, we get another view of the screws and they're literally about to fall off. Like if the girls make any type of jump or any type of, sudden movement, these screws will fly off and the girls will literally fall to their death. After a while, the girls finally reach the top of the internal ladder and Hunter says, "Okay, there's 200 feet of external ladder left to go. Not gonna lie, it's gonna get a little bit crazy out here, but I don't want you to panic. Like, everything's okay, just follow my lead." Becky looks so terrified because now they're literally gonna have to climb 200 feet out in the open. Before they were doing this inside the ladder, so I guess it felt like a little bit safe because they were kind of like in a cage, but now they were literally out in the open. So if they fall, there's literally nothing to grab onto. Becky tells Hunter, "I can't do this." "No, Becky, you've got this. Just calm down. Just look up and just keep following me. You got this." Becky agrees to keep climbing, and as she reaches for the next bar on the ladder, she finally sees that the screws on the side of the ladder are becoming loose. She gets a little bit concerned, but for some reason it doesn't really freak her out, so she continues climbing. As they're climbing up, Hunter continues to try to keep Becky calm, and she tells her to just sing a nursery, something from her childhood that will calm her down. Becky starts singing, and that's when Hunter realizes that there's these two huge satellites in the middle of the tower. So if the girls want to get to the top, they're literally going to have to pass these two satellite towers, and this was going to be very difficult. Like, how are they going to climb over it in the middle of the air? There's nothing for them to hold on to, and it just does not look good. "Okay, Bex, this is going to look a lot worse than it is. I don't want you to freak out. We can do this." Of course, Becky starts to freak out, and she tells Hunter that they should go back down and that it's not worth it. But Hunter is determined to make it to the top, and she tells Becky, "If I let you go back down now, fear wins, and I'm not going to let that happen." And she begins to climb over and through where the satellite dishes are. It was a very tight spot, but both girls make it through, and Hunter laughs about it, and she's like, "Okay, smooth sailing from here on out." She starts joking around and she tells Becky, "Hey, does this ladder feel loose to you?" And she starts shaking the ladder, and of course Hunter has no idea that the screws are actually loose because at this point the only people that know about it are the viewers and Becky. So she's shaking the ladder in a joking way and one of the screws come undone and falls to the ground. Becky starts screaming at Hunter and tells her, "Stop it, I hate you, like stop doing this, like this is freaking me out, it's not funny." Hunter stops shaking the ladder, and at this point the screw has finally landed on the ground, and it made a little bit of noise when it hit the ground. So Becky hears this and she says, "What was that? Like, what was that noise?" Hunter just ignores her and kind of brushes it off and says, "Come on, we're almost there." Hunter finally makes it to the top of the tower, and when she gets onto this little ledge, she just stands there and she's looking at the view and she's just amazed by what she's looking at. The view is absolutely beautiful and she just feels so happy at the fact that she finally reached the top. Now Becky is right behind her, so Hunter reaches over to the edge and she grabs Becky's hand to push her up over the ledge. As Becky takes the last step to get on the ledge, another screw gets loose, but neither one of them notices. Hunter pulls Becky up and now both girls are at the top of the tower. Both girls are just standing there, amazed at the fact that they climbed this 2,000-foot tower. Of course, both girls start taking selfies, they start taking videos. Of course, Hunter starts vlogging for her YouTube channel. She hands Becky her cell phone and tells her, "Can you take a photo of me?" And Becky just assumes that Hunter's gonna pose, just like a cute little photo, but no. Hunter decides to get down and hang off the ledge of the tower. Literally, like free hang off the ledge of the tower. Of course, Becky starts freaking out and she tells her, "Don't do this, like this is really stupid." And Hunter says, "No, I did not climb this tower and put on this push-up bra for no reason. I need a good photo." Like I'm telling you, Hunter is just on a different level. Like she is so crazy. So Becky takes a photo of her and then Hunter climbs back onto the ledge and tells Becky, "It's your turn now." "No, you're crazy. There's no way that I'm going to hang over the ledge by myself. Come on, you have to do it." The old Becky would have done it. And this is enough to guilt Becky into doing this. So she climbs over the side of the platform to hang on, and she's only being held by Hunter's hand while Hunter is also grabbing the center of the pole with her leg and using her other hand to take a few selfies. But the girls make it work. They take a couple of selfies and then Becky climbs back up to the top of the tower. Next time you're afraid of anything, I want you to look at these photos and know that you can face anything and you can do anything. I'm so proud of you, Becky. And I know that Dan would be proud of you too. Becky starts crying and says, "Okay, it's time." And she reaches into her backpack and she pulls out the box with her husband's ashes. And she opens a bag of Dan's ashes and she scatters them into the air. Of course, she's crying because she just scattered her husband's ashes, but she looks over and she sees that Hunter is also crying. And she's crying a lot. "Hey, is everything okay? Why are you crying?" "No, I'm sorry. I didn't think it was gonna hit me like this. I've just been away for so long, and just seeing you scatter his ashes just made it real." Becky comforts her friend because, of course, this is also traumatic for Hunter. I mean, Hunter was literally there when Dan died. Of course, this affected her and made her feel emotional. So the two girls start comforting each other, and Becky tells her, "Come on, let's get back to Earth, okay? I really need to pee. I don't know about you, but I've needed to pee since the halfway point, so let's get back down there." Hunter laughs, and they start getting ready to descend. Becky goes first, and she steps on the ladder that we previously saw lose a screw. So she goes down a few steps, and then all of a sudden, the ladder falls backwards, and it throws Becky off the ladder. She is now left hanging in mid-air, but luckily she's attached to Hunter, and Hunter feels a tug on her harness about to pull her down too, but she quickly grabs the center pole from the top platform to save both of them. Becky is literally spinning in free air, just like her husband was when he died. She's spinning around and she's doing everything in her power to try to grab onto the tower, grab onto anything. Meanwhile, Hunter is also hanging onto the pole and trying to hang onto the rope at the same time, because if Hunter lets go of the pole, then the both of them literally go down. So it's absolutely crazy, but thankfully Hunter is able to hold onto the rope and get Becky a little bit closer to a few of the ladders that were still left after the rest of the ladder fell to the ground. Becky grabs onto these last few steps and she's able to climb back up to the platform, and she's safe for now. The two girls start laughing like crazy, and Becky's like, "Wait, I just almost died. Like, did that really happen? I literally almost died." Hunter's also laughing, and she tells her, "I wish I would have filmed that for the vlog." Becky's like, "Okay, enough laughter. Let's get back on the ground before I literally pee myself." Both girls look down, and they realize that the middle portion of the ladder is gone. So the only part of the ladder they have left is just the first 3 steps, and that's it. Of course, the girls start freaking out because how are they going to get back to the ground if the ladder is gone? Hunter starts thinking of ways to get back down while Becky looks at her phone and sees that she has no signal. Hunter looks at her phone and she also realizes that she doesn't have any signal. So now both girls are stuck at the top of this 2,000-foot tower in the middle of nowhere, literally in the middle of a desert with no ladder, no food, and no phone signal. On top of that, no one knows that they're up there. They didn't tell their parents, they didn't tell their followers, no no one. Of course, Becky's immediately freaking out, and Hunter tries to calm her down and tells her that freaking out isn't going to solve anything. If she freaks out and hyperventilates, that's not going to solve the situation. They start looking around the ledge to see if they can find anything that can help, and they end up finding this box that was attached to the center pole that had a flare gun and binoculars inside. Hunter immediately grabs the binoculars and she starts looking around to see if maybe she can see a building nearby, maybe there's people hiking, maybe there's something out there that can help them, but no. They are in the middle of nowhere. All they can see is the motel and the diner from far away, but they're too far to call for help. I mean, even if they start screaming off the top of their lungs, there's no way that anyone from the diner or the hotel will be able to hear them. Becky starts looking for the bag so she can drink some water, and that's when she realizes that the bag actually fell and that it landed on one of the satellite dishes down below. So remember how I mentioned earlier how in order to get to the top of the tower, they had to go through these two satellite dishes that were very big and just like in the middle of the pole. Well, that's where their backpack landed. And the only way to get to those satellite dishes is with the ladder, which is now on the ground. So Becky realizes that they don't have the backpack and she starts freaking out even more. Oh my gosh, we're gonna die of thirst up here. Like, what are we gonna do? Look, Beck, calm down. The ladder made a lot of noise when it fell to the ground, so I'm sure someone heard it and called 911, and police officers should be here soon. So don't worry about it. We just have to sit here and wait, and I know help is coming. Are you sure someone heard that? Of course, Beck. I mean, it's a big ladder. Someone had to have heard the bang. Yeah, that's a good point. But do you really think someone's coming to help us? Yes, 1,000,000% someone's coming to help us. Both girls sit down on the ledge, and that's when Hunter realizes that Becky actually cut her leg open. Hunter ties her shirt around it and tries to apply pressure to the wound to stop the bleeding. Becky says that she didn't even realize she had cut her leg open because of all the adrenaline that was going through her body of how are we gonna get down from here. Thankfully, the t-shirt has stopped the bleeding, so the two girls lean back and Becky decides to kind of go over to the ledge and pee, because at this point she's had to pee for like about an hour and a half, and who knows how long it's going to be until someone comes and gets them. So she decides to pee over the ledge and then sit back down and wait for help to arrive. In the next scene, Becky is recording Hunter as part of the vlog, and she's asking Hunter, okay, tell us the real reason why you vlog. Well, the real reason is because of Dan. And Becky listens to her answer and she's kind of confused, like, wait, the reason you vlog is because of my husband? Like, how does that make sense? Well, what happened to Dan just made me realize that life is fleeting. And she goes on to have this like little speech where she's talking about how life is so short and that, seeing what happened to Dan just made her realize that life needs to be lived to the fullest. And Becky tells her, what you're saying is amazing and beautiful. You should act that way more on camera instead of trying to be like a daredevil, clickbaity person. Hunter kind of just brushes it off, and the two girls continue to sit there and wait for help. Hunter's looking through the binoculars to see if maybe she can find anything that will help, and that's when she sees a vulture flying around in the sky, probably the same vultures they saw earlier eating that dead animal, and then she sees an RV. Now this RV is not too far from them, but it looks abandoned. It looks very run down, so Hunter's a little bit worried, what if this RV is just sitting there but there's no one here that can help us? Feeling defeated, Hunter starts scrolling through her cell phone, and that's when she remembers that earlier that day, she did have signal when she was down below because she was able to post that photo of the dead animal on Instagram. So she thinks to herself, okay, just because we don't have signal up here doesn't mean our phone won't work down there. She starts explaining to Becky that if they can lower her phone, maybe they can send a text message or make a phone call to let someone know that they need help. Becky's like, great idea. So the two girls start working on a way to pull down the phone. They end up tying Becky's ponytail to the phone and to the rope, and then they start lowering the phone to reach one of the satellite dishes below. They figure that if they can get to the satellite dishes, then most likely they will be able to send a text message. So Hunter makes a quick little Instagram post that says, help, we're on tower B67, we're stranded, call the police. And she clicks post and she said, okay, once we lower it and we get the signal, I'll be able to hear if the photo posts, and then hopefully someone sees my Instagram photo and calls 911. So Hunter types up the message, they attach the phone to the ponytail and to the rope, and they begin to lower it. They get the phone as close as possible to the satellite dishes, but it doesn't work. They don't hear that the photo has been posted, so the girls think, okay, I guess we need to go lower, because at this point they know that they do have signal down at the bottom since she posted the photo earlier. So they keep trying to get it lower and lower, but the rope can only reach so far. That's when the girls come up with the idea to just drop the phone all the way to the bottom and literally just pray that the photo posts. Hunter tells Becky, okay, what if my phone shatters though? Like, what if we drop it to the ground and it literally shatters and then no one receives that text message? Okay, well, we just need to find some type of cushion. That way when we drop it, it doesn't shatter. Give me your shoe and we'll put your phone inside and we'll drop the shoe with the phone inside and hopefully that'll be enough protection. Hunter starts taking off her shoe and they put the phone inside, but Becky feels like they still need a little bit more cushion. Hunter, why don't you give me your sock? That'll add some extra cushion. Now Hunter looks a little bit hesitant about this, like she doesn't want to take her sock off, but she knows that there's really no other option, so she takes the sock off and she hands it over to Becky. Becky puts the phone inside the sock and then she puts the sock inside the shoe and gets ready to drop the phone. I still feel like we need a little bit more cushion. Hunter, I think you need to take off your bra. Give me your push-up bra. Your push-up bra has all this padding, so this will be the most protected way that we can drop the phone. Hunter's like, yeah, I've been dying to take my bra off. So she takes off the bra and she hands it over to Becky. So at this point, they're gonna drop Hunter's shoe, her phone, her sock, and her bra. Hunter grabs the items and she says, here goes nothing, and she drops the shoe to the ground. They see that the shoe lands and Becky's like, did it work? Like, did the photo post? But at this point, they're 2,000 feet above, so there's no way that they could hear if the Instagram photo posted or not. So since they can't hear if the photo actually posted, the two girls just sit back and once again, they wait. They wait for help to arrive. They hope that the photo did post and that help is on the way. Some time passes and Hunter is looking through the binoculars out into the world to see if maybe someone will appear, and while she's doing this, Becky is sitting down at the ledge and she looks over and she looks at Hunter's foot, the one that doesn't have the sock on it. So she's looking at Hunter's foot and she sees that she has a tattoo of the numbers 143. And she's looking at this and she's a little bit confused. Now before we see why Becky's confused about this, Hunter interrupts her train of thought and screams, holy shit, there's a freaking guy and a dog. Becky immediately jumps up and the two girls start looking at this guy who's at the bottom of the base and he's on his cell phone talking to someone while his dog is just roaming around. They immediately start screaming for help. They're literally shouting at the top of their lungs, but again, they are 2,000 feet above, so there's really no way that this guy could hear them from all the way down below. Plus, the guy is talking on his cell phone, so he's obviously distracted. They continue shouting at him, and his dog actually approaches Hunter's shoe, and he starts sniffing the shoe, and he actually does hear the girls screaming from up above. But again, this is a dog, so it's not like he can tell the owner, hey, I hear someone screaming. So the dog is just looking up at the girls, and in that moment, the owner calls him back. Now, the girls don't want this guy to get away because this is literally their one chance to be saved. So Becky immediately takes off her shoes and she starts throwing them down to the bottom of the tower in hopes that the guy will see it, look up, and realize that someone is stuck up there. So Becky throws the shoes in hopes that this will catch the guy's attention, and it does. The guy turns around and sees that there's a shoe on the ground. He picks up the shoe and he kind of starts looking at it, and he's confused as to why there's a shoe in the middle of this desert. He looks at it, but he honestly doesn't think twice about it, and he just throws the shoe back on the ground. He doesn't look up, he doesn't investigate, he does nothing. Hunter and Becky are looking at this guy and they're literally freaking out because he's about to walk away without helping them. Hunter keeps looking at him through the binoculars and she can see that he's heading over to the RV, the one that she noticed earlier that she thought was abandoned, and he gets over to the RV, and that's when another guy also appears. Another guy walks out of the RV and he starts setting up a grill outside to make some food. So now there's two people that could potentially realize that the girls are up there and call for help. Hunter turns over to Becky and says, okay, we only have one chance to use a flare gun. That's it. There's two guys down there, so we need to make sure that we use it correctly. That way when we hit the flare, they'll realize it and call for help. If they don't see this flare, then we're literally done. Like, there's no other flare gun we can use. Like, this is our only chance. Becky agrees with this plan, and the two girls decide to wait until nighttime. That way the flare is more visible, because at this point it's still daytime. So if they hit the flare right now, the chances of the guys seeing the flare gun or anyone seeing the flare gun are very low. below. So in the meantime, while the girls are waiting for nighttime to come, Becky is sitting there scrolling through her phone, looking at old videos of her and Dan. She's looking at this video from her wedding day, and it's of her and Dan having their first dance together. She's smiling because, of course, this is a good memory, but in the background, she notices something. She zooms in, and in the background, you can see Hunter standing there, staring at Dan and Becky, and she does not look happy. Instead of looking happy and joyful that your best friend just got married and is having her first dance with her husband, Hunter is standing there looking angry, almost jealous in a way. So Becky notices this and she's confused. You know, why does her best friend look so angry on her wedding day? Also, why does she have 143 tattooed on her foot? Before she can confront Hunter about this, Hunter immediately stands up and says, okay, the guys are finishing up their dinner. We have to hit the flare gun now before they go inside. So Becky immediately gets up and she tries to shoot the flare gun, but it doesn't go off. Wait, what happened? Why isn't it working? I took the safety off. Maybe something's wrong with it. The two girls start fiddling with the flare gun, and at this point, the guys are almost inside the RV. Finally, the girls are able to make the flare gun work, and they shoot up the flare into the sky. Hunter grabs her binoculars, and she looks at the guys to see if maybe they noticed it, and they do. However, they don't really care about it. They kind of just look up, they're like, wow, that's a pretty light in the sky, and that's it. Hunter grabs Becky's phone, she turns on the flashlight, and she starts waving it in the air to see if maybe they'll also notice the flashlight, but they don't. The girls are screaming at the top of their lungs, asking the men to help, but instead, the men get inside the RV and they start driving towards the entrance of the tower. The girls are thinking to themselves that the men are gonna come save them, but no. The men pull up to the gate where Hunter's car is parked, and instead they steal her car. Yeah, instead of helping the girls, they literally steal her car, and Hunter is screaming, she's banging on everything, but the men don't hear her. Now it's nighttime, the girls are all alone, they don't have any food, any water, no signal, they used the only flare gun they had, and at this point they're feeling somewhat defeated. The only thing they have is Becky's cell phone and the light from the tower, but that's it. So Hunter starts to doze off, but Becky tries to stay awake, and all she can think about is why Hunter has that tattoo. Why does she have 143 on her, and why did she look so angry at her wedding? Now, while Hunter is falling asleep, she slips and she almost falls off the ledge of the tower. Becky immediately grabs her, and this wakes Hunter up, and she's like, okay, that was crazy. If one of us falls, we have to take the phone with us, that way we can call for help. She says that in a joking way because she knows that if one of them falls, they'll literally die. She looks over at Becky's wound and she sees that it's still bleeding even though her shirt is wrapped around it. She goes over to tighten the shirt and she looks up and she sees that Becky is just staring at her, like staring her dead in the eyes with a very serious look on her face. What's wrong? Why are you staring at me like that? Dan could never say the words I love you. Instead, he would say 143, as in the number of letters that each word has in I love you. And as she's saying this, she points over at Hunter's foot and says, 143. Hunter's face looks so shocked and she tells her, Becky, I'm sorry. And Becky just interrupts her and says, how long? 4 months. I'm so sorry, Becky. I'm so sorry. For what? For sleeping with my husband or for me finding out about it? For falling in love with the same guy? Becky just looks away, so disappointed in her best friend and in her husband. I mean, imagine finding out that your husband was having an affair with your best friend, someone that you trusted and went on all these adventures with. So earlier when the girls were driving to the tower and Becky saw that photo of Hunter on vacation with a man's hand on her, that was her husband's hand. Her husband literally went on vacation with her behind her back. Now, earlier in the movie when Becky's father was telling her that, you know, Dan wasn't the guy she thought she was, and that he was an asshole, now I'm thinking that maybe this wasn't the first time that Dan had done this, or that he had done something weird before. Like at first I was feeling so bad for Dan that he died in such a terrible way, but after learning this, I was like, I'm not saying he deserved it, but God's timing is always right. Comment down below if you know where that's from. The girls fall asleep and the next morning the sun is up and Becky immediately asks Hunter who made the first move. He did, but it was a huge mistake, Becky. I promise it meant nothing. No, a mistake is a kiss, a one-night stand, but you said that you were seeing him for 4 months. That's not a mistake. Look, Becky, I tried not to fall for him, but I did. He wasn't like all the assholes I dated before. He cared for me, and I just fell for him. When you asked me to be your maid of honor at the wedding, that's when I decided to cut it off. I realized that this was so wrong and that I loved you more than I loved him. Becky is listening to this, but she's not having it. Hunter continues to explain that it meant nothing, and she told Becky, that's why I ran away after Dan died. It was just too painful, and I felt terrible comforting you about your husband's death, knowing that I was in love with your husband and that I was with him. And now you hate me because we're stranded on this stupid tower, and it's all my fault. Becky just looks so heartbroken, and she looks down at her wedding finger and she takes off the ring and hangs it onto her necklace. So she's obviously not ready yet to let go of Dan and just chuck the ring into the open and just forget about it because, again, he did die. That was the love of her life, and this is just all very shocking news. Before Becky and Hunter can continue the conversation about the affair, Becky's phone suddenly goes off. The girls reach for the phone, and it turns out that it was a timer that Becky had set the day before when Hunter dropped her phone to the ground. Becky looks at the phone and says, "It's been 24 hours since we dropped your phone to the ground. Either all your followers don't care if you're stuck on a tower or the photo never posted." "Okay, no worries. We still have one more shot." "Your phone, Becky. Let's drop your phone." "Yeah, but we don't have any padding, so if we drop my phone, it's just gonna shatter on the ground." "Ugh, how long until we die of thirst? I'm so thirsty." "The worst part is that we have a drone, so we could have written a note on it and sent it over to the hotel to get some help." Hunter looks down and sees that the bag is on the satellite dishes just about 200 feet below them. "Wait, I think I can get it. I think the rope is long enough so I can go down there and reach the bag." Becky immediately stops this and says, "No, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think you should go down there." "Becky, we don't have another choice. Besides, maybe you'll get lucky and I'll fall." So Hunter grabs all of her things and she attaches herself to the rope and gets ready to climb down. As she's about to descend, she tells Becky, "I'm sorry, Bex, I love you." And then she starts making her way down to the bags. She gets as low as possible, but she still isn't able to reach, so she actually detaches herself from the harness and tries to lower herself further and, tries to swing herself onto one of the satellite dishes so she can get the bag. Now, even if she swings near the satellite dishes, there's still a little bit of a gap between the dish and the harness. So Hunter basically has to make a lunge for it and just hope and pray that she lands on the dish. If she misses the dish, she will literally fall to her death. So Hunter continues to swing and she makes one big jump, and thankfully she makes it. She lands on the satellite dishes, she grabs a bag, opens it up, and takes a sip of water. At this point, I think these girls have been here for maybe a day, 2 days, so I'm sure they were so thirsty. So Hunter starts drinking some water while Beck is up there looking at her and asks her, "How are you going to get back on the rope? Because you literally just had to jump. So are you going to jump to the rope and just hope that you make it? What are you going to do?" And Hunter hears this and is like, what am I going to do? How am I going to reach the rope? Like I said, she literally has to jump from the dish over to the rope and just hope and pray that she makes it. She takes her selfie stick out of the backpack and she tries to use the selfie stick to bring the rope closer to her. That way she doesn't have to jump too far. She hooks her back to the rope and says, "Okay, I'm going to jump on the bag and then Becky, you pull me up. Okay? We got this." Becky starts pulling while Hunter climbs, and as Hunter is about to reach for the last few steps of the ladder, she slips. Becky immediately starts screaming and she looks over the ledge to see if Hunter fell to the ground, but no. Thankfully, Hunter landed on the backpack that is still attached to the rope, but since she slid down on the rope, her hands got cut up and she was no longer able to climb up the rope herself. So she tells Becky, "I'm okay, I landed on the backpack, but I can't use my hands, so you're gonna have to pull me up." Becky gathers the strength to pull Hunter up, and thankfully it works. Hunter is back on the ledge of the tower, and Becky immediately grabs a bag and starts chugging water. She offers some to Hunter, but Hunter says, "No, we should ration the water." Because again, they have no idea if this drone idea is actually gonna work. Hunter takes out the drone, and she tells Becky that she's gonna have to fly it since her hands are all cut up and she can't use them. They start going through the bag to see if maybe they can find some food, but there's nothing. So then they start looking for a way to write a message, that way they can attach it to the drone, fly the drone into the town, and then hopefully someone can see it, read the message, and call for help. So they end up finding a napkin inside the backpack, and they also find some of Hunter's eyeliner. So they decide to use the eyeliner to write a message on the napkin, and they attach it to the drone. Hunter teaches Becky how to fly the drone, and once Becky is all settled in, she takes the drone and she starts flying it. They're watching it fly towards the town, and both girls are so happy because they feel like they're finally gonna get saved. Like someone has to see this drone and find the note. So they keep flying the drone, and as soon as they get past the gate where they had originally parked their car, all of a sudden the remote for the drone says low battery. Hunter tells Becky that they need to pull the drone back because if they lose this drone, then they're pretty much done. There's no other way that they can call for help. But Becky tries to fight back and she says, no, let's keep going, like we're almost there. But Hunter says, no, pull it back. I have a charger here, like we'll figure it out. So they pull the drone back to the tower, and at this point Hunter's like, okay, we have the charger, but we don't have a plug, so how are we gonna do this? And that's when Becky remembers the little life hack that Hunter had told her the other day at the diner of, disattaching the light bulb and then using that to charge her phone. So Becky tells her the light bulb, because remember, at the top of the tower is a light bulb that is always on. Hunter agrees to the plan, but at this point it's already nighttime, so there's no way that they're gonna be able to climb to the very top and be able to see what they're doing when it's pitch black. So the girls decide to sit back and wait until morning comes. They fall asleep, and the next morning Hunter tells Becky, it's a really standard light bulb, but it's gonna be very hot and the climb is short, but it's gonna feel like you're climbing 1,000 feet, but don't worry, you got this. And the reason that Becky's doing this is because once again, Hunter cut up her hands when she fell from the rope, so she can't use her hands to grip onto the tower to climb up. So Becky has to do it. Becky's like, okay, I got this. And she starts climbing up the tower, and as she's doing this, Hunter is cheering her on. She's hyping her up from down below, and thankfully, Becky makes it. She reaches the top and takes off the light bulb, but realizes that the charger isn't long enough to touch the base of the light bulb. So that's when Hunter tells her that they need a metal piece to help carry the current. That's when Becky decides to use her wedding ring that she previously attached to her neck, and she puts it near the light bulb, and it works. The drone starts charging, so now all they can do is sit there and wait for the drone to charge so they can send it over to the town and hope that someone sees it. Now, since the charger doesn't reach the bottom where Hunter is, Becky literally has to stay there the entire day until the drone is fully charged. As she's waiting at the top of the tower, vultures start circling around her, the same vultures that we saw earlier in the story. And now they're flying very close to Becky, and they won't leave her alone. And she's literally hanging on like this, so anytime she uses her arm to swat them away, she risks falling down. She keeps trying to swat them away, but these vultures just won't leave her alone. As she's fighting them off, the backpack accidentally falls off her shoulder and it falls to the ground past Hunter. Hunter looks at the bag falling, but she doesn't try to grab it. After some time, Becky sees that the drone has fully charged, so she disconnects everything and she starts making her way down to Hunter. When she gets there, she asks Hunter, why didn't you catch the bag? Hunter just kind of brushes it off, and before she can even answer Becky tells her, okay, we need to fly the drone now. We cannot wait any longer. So once again, the girls get everything ready and they start flying the drone. At this point, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, so people should be out and about. People are checking out of the motel. People are going to the diner for breakfast, so someone has to see this drone. Becky starts flying the drone, and thankfully the drone has full battery, so it's definitely going to make it all the way to the motel. The drone keeps moving and moving until it's about to reach the hotel. Literally, they can see the hotel and the diner on the drone footage, and both girls are just so happy because they're almost there. So as they're flying the drone over the road, all of a sudden the drone gets slammed by a semi-truck and it drops to the ground. Becky and Hunter immediately start freaking out, and the drone is still working because they can still see on the footage that the truck driver got out and, is kind of looking around to see what he crashed into. And both girls are saying, please see the drone, please see the drone, but the truck driver doesn't see it and he gets back in his car and drives away. So now the last chance that these girls had to ask for help is gone. The drone is shattered on the ground. Who knows if anyone is gonna come outside and check on it and see the note. I mean, Becky just sits back and she's kind of looking at all this and she just feels defeated. At this point, what else can they do? Nighttime starts getting closer and Becky's sitting back on the pole and she looks up and sees that the vultures are at the top of the pole. Now these vultures can smell the blood coming from Becky's wound on her leg. So they're just sitting up there waiting for Becky to either fall asleep or doze off or die. That way they can go eat her. There's also a big gray cloud in front of them and Becky sees this and says, there's a storm coming. I don't think I can make it another night. At this point, it's been days since the girls have had anything to eat or drink. Their faces are starting to peel and have scabs because of all the sun exposure. I mean, both girls are literally on their last limb. Becky tells Hunter, I can't do this anymore. I'm so hungry. I feel so hopeless. Becky, you can't talk that way. You need to stay strong, okay? Those vultures can smell your blood, so you need to stay awake. That way they don't attack you. Why don't you find something to eat? What do you mean find something to eat? We're literally 2,000 feet in the air. There's no food here. Hunter says, there's always an option. Becky then says, why don't we send another text message? Maybe we can drop my phone and this time the message will go through. I mean, what other option do we have? Hunter just kind of stays quiet and Becky tells her, we need to find some more padding. Can you give me your other shoe? I can't. Why? Why can't you give me a shoe? Because it's not up here. What are you talking about, Hunter? Your shoe is literally on your foot. No, it's not up here. It's down there. I'm down there. Remember? I'm down there. I fell. You can't have my shoe because I didn't catch the bag. I bled out. And as Hunter is saying this, she's pointing down at the satellite dishes and Becky leans over the ledge to look at where Hunter's pointing, and that's when she sees Hunter lying there, dead. She looks back up to where Hunter was just sitting there talking to her, but she's gone. Becky was all alone and she had imagined Hunter this entire time. So we get a flashback as to what actually happened to Hunter. So remember how earlier I mentioned that Hunter was trying to climb back up the rope to get to the ledge but accidentally fell off and landed on the backpack? Well, it turns out that Hunter never landed on the backpack. Instead, she fell onto the satellite dish and died. Hunter's ghost appears again and tells Becky, you didn't really think your scrawny ass could pull me back up, did you? Because remember, earlier we saw that Hunter fell but landed on the bag, but thankfully Becky was able to pull her back up. Well, none of that happened. Becky is just staring down at the satellite dish and she just sees her friend's body laying there dead with the vultures eating her body. After I fell, you pulled the bag up. I guess you were too afraid to realize that you were up here all alone, so you pretended that I never died. Becky starts crying uncontrollably and she just cannot believe that her best friend is dead. Yes, her best friend was having an affair with her husband and she wasn't the greatest person ever, but that doesn't mean that she deserved to die. On top of dealing with the fact that her best friend was dead and was being eaten by these vultures, she also had to deal with the fact that she was up here all by herself, with no drone, no help, no food, no water, no companion, nothing. Just her and her phone. She lays down while she's crying and she pulls out her phone and starts making a video for her father. She starts recording herself and says, hey dad, I found my fight again. I want to live. I want to live. I want to go home, but I don't think I'm gonna make it. You were right about everything. I'm sorry, dad. By the time you see this, I'll be gone. I love you. And she ends the video. Now, as she's recording this message, we see that her dad has been trying to contact her for the past few days. I mean, he has been calling and texting his daughter, but of course she's had no signal, so she hasn't responded to any of his messages. Becky falls asleep, and when morning comes, she wakes up and sees that a vulture is trying to gnaw at her leg, because at this point her wound is not doing well. The t-shirt is covered in blood, her leg is bleeding, it's getting an infection, and this vulture is trying to eat her. This immediately startles Becky, so she grabs the vulture by the neck and she snaps his neck and kills him. So now Becky is covered in this vulture's blood and she can hear Hunter's voice telling her, you need to eat something. Remember, survival of the fittest. So that's when Becky decides to start eating the vulture, which is crazy, but again, you gotta do what you gotta do. So she finishes eating the vulture, she puts her hair in a ponytail and she hooks herself at the center of the pole and starts making her way down on the remaining steps of the ladder. She makes her way down to the satellite dishes where Hunter's body is and she unhooks herself so that she lands directly on the dish. At this point, the second vulture is still eating Hunter's body, so Becky quickly shoos him and he flies away. Now Becky is just sitting there looking at her friend's dead body, and Hunter looks terrible. Her skin is dry, her bones are broken, and all of her wounds have been gnawed at by these vultures. Becky goes over to grab Hunter's hand and tells her, I love you. She grabs her phone and she tries to send a text message to her dad because she figures, maybe I'll get signal here since the dish is right here. But unfortunately, the messages don't go through. And that's when she gets a crazy idea. She decides to grab Hunter's shoe, put her phone inside, and instead of just dropping the shoe with the phone, she decides to put the shoe inside of Hunter's body. Right in Hunter's stomach, there was like this big open wound. I'm not sure how she got it. I don't know if the vultures made that or if, she accidentally cut her stomach when she fell, but there's this big wound in her stomach, and Becky decides to stuff the shoe inside the wound. As she's doing this, she's crying and she's telling Hunter, I'm sorry, I just really need this to go through. She stuffs the shoe inside of Hunter's body and then she pushes Hunter's body over the edge and it lands on the ground. Now, the reason that Becky had this idea is, of course the phone isn't going to shatter if it's inside Hunter's body, and if her body lands on the ground, then the message will definitely go through. So Hunter's body lands on the ground, and at this point, we can see that the satellite dish starts to rattle. Becky starts freaking out, and before we can see what happens next, we suddenly turn over to her father, who gets a text message and immediately starts driving over to the tower. As soon as he gets there, paramedics are already on the scene and they're dragging away a body. The dad starts crying because he thinks that it's his daughter's body, but in that moment, Becky appears and says, "Dad?" And then she runs over and hugs her father. The dad starts immediately crying and he tells her, "Oh my gosh, Becky, I thought that was you." Becky hugs him back and says, "I'm sorry, Dad, I love you." "It's okay, honey, I just want you to be okay." Becky says, I am gonna be okay. And she continues to hug her father as the two of them are standing there crying in relief. Hunter's body gets taken away by the paramedics and Becky and her dad get inside the car and drive away. The movie ends with Becky saying, "Life is fleeting, life is short, too short. So you've got to use every moment. You have to do something that makes you feel alive." And that shit, that would spread the message far and wide. And that is The Fall. I hope you guys liked the story. I really liked the movie and I was really shocked when I found out that Hunter was dead the entire time. Like, I remember I was watching it and then as soon as that happened, I literally screamed. I was like, no, there's no way this girl died. Like, that was the last thing that I expected. I honestly expected that the both of them were gonna survive, but the fact that Hunter died was just really crazy to me. So I really liked the movie. I felt like I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. It wasn't what I was expecting and I just thought it was really good. I don't know. I would probably give this movie like a 7, 8 out of 10. This just made me realize that I'm never gonna go on an adventure without telling someone where I am. Like, the fact that these two girls just left and didn't tell anyone that they were gonna be at this tower is crazy to me. So, lesson learned, if you're ever gonna go on a hike or if you're ever gonna do something by yourself, always let someone know where you're going and what you're doing. I really liked that the movie had so many moments of foreshadowing. For example, when the girls come across the vulture eating the dead animal and Hunter tells Becky, "You would do the same if you were starving." And then Becky later ends up starving and eating the vulture. Like, there was just a lot of moments of foreshadowing that I really liked. So I don't know, I enjoyed the movie. I enjoy 47 Meters Down, so I will definitely be watching another movie from the same producers because they really know how to make a suspenseful movie. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this fictional story. Let me know down below what you guys thought about this, and if there's ever any other movies or stories that you guys want me to cover, make sure to let me know in the comments down below. There will be a true crime video coming soon, so make sure to stay tuned for that. And if you haven't checked out my new episode of What Happened, make sure to click the link down below so you guys can watch the video on what happened to Paulette Ibarra. Alright, you guys, that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you guys again so much for being here, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye, guys!